Yo, it's Jojo! So today I'm going to do another video reaction, and this one is a bit different from the others because I've encountered this video on my suggestion list on YouTube. And the title is How Similar Are Tagalog and Indonesian? For those who don't know, I am Filipino, but I was raised in the States. And since a lot of my viewers are from Indonesia, I wanted to learn more about the language. And I love learning about different cultures. So thank you guys for being here. And I also have Filipino viewers as well. So I think this would be very interesting to watch. So let's go start it. 가자!
This video is brought to you by Innovative Language, the creators of Indonesian Pod 101 and Filipino Pod 101. Click the link in the description to check out their huge collection of audio and video lessons for students of all levels. Hello everyone, welcome to the Lang Focus channel, and my name is Paul. Today we're going to compare Tagalog, otherwise known as Filipino, the lingua franca of the Philippines, and Indonesian, the lingua franca of Indonesia, the most widely spoken variety of Malay. Basically everything I say about Indonesian in this video will also apply to Malay, because their standard forms are very close to each other, aside from some different vocabulary. But since I'm more familiar with Indonesian, the samples in this video will focus on Indonesian.
Okay.
Tagalog on the one hand, and Indonesian and other forms of Malay on the other are not mutually intelligible.
So if it says and
but
Malay,
native
that means
speakers
you
of
guys
either
speak
language
Malaysian
often say that they
or
feel
Malay
they should
in
be able to
Indonesian,
understand
right?
the other language, but they can't. This is probably due to their similar pronunciation
I noticed
and
that,
intonation,
the similar
and they might also
pronunciation.
hear some similar words in the other language, partly because of the common origins of the two languages. Malay, including Indonesian, since they're essentially the same language, and Tagalog are both members of the Malayo-Polynesian branch of the Austronesian language family.
He did his research. I didn't know any of this.
From the same language, Proto-Malayo-Polynesian, from which all members of that branch descended. Speakers of Proto-Malayo-Polynesian first migrated from Taiwan to northern Luzon in the Philippines before spreading out across much of maritime Southeast Asia and the Pacific. Most of the languages of Philippines, and most of the languages of Malaysia and Indonesia, outside of Papua that is, also descended from Proto-Malayo-Polynesian. So at their core, Malay and Tagalog are related, though they've been diverging from each other for at least 4,000 years, and maybe much longer. During that time, they've developed their own features and have undergone different influences. Influences on Malay. Sanskrit had a heavy influence on Malay vocabulary and literature, beginning in the 7th century, followed by Arabic in the 14th century, once Islam was established in the archipelago. Later on, Malay was influenced by English in British colonial territories, and Dutch in the Dutch colonial territories. Modern Indonesian, which began to be called Indonesian only in 1928, contains more Dutch influence, while Malay in Malaysia, Brunei, and Singapore contains more English influence. Influences on Tagalog. One of the major influences on Tagalog was actually Malay, which served as a lingua franca throughout maritime Southeast Asia for centuries. So some of the similarities between Malay and Tagalog stem from their ancient common origin, and some of their similarities stem from the more recent influence of Malay on Tagalog. Then the Spanish arrived in Philippines in 1521 and left a massive footprint on Tagalog and other Filipino languages. What percentage of Tagalog words come from Spanish? Estimates range from 20% to 33%.
That's why my mom
This definitely accounts for a lot of the difference in vocabulary between Tagalog and Malay and Indonesian. Philippines also became a colony of the United States for several decades, beginning in 1898, and as a result, English is the second official language of Philippines.
That would make sense.
And Tagalog has many borrowings from English. Since I'm focusing on Indonesian for the samples, I'm simply going to refer to it as Indonesian from now on, rather than saying Indonesian and Malay all the time. Generally speaking, Indonesian and Tagalog are fairly different in terms of grammar and sentence structure. In terms of pronunciation, they're quite similar. Stop consonants in both Indonesian and Tagalog are unaspirated, meaning that there's no puff of air after the consonant, the way there often is after p, t, and k in English. They both also lack v and f sounds, except for a small number of loanwords, but many speakers will pronounce them as b and p.
That's true.
They also have similar sets of vowels. Tagalog has 5. A, E, I, O.
My mom would always teach me that when I was a kid.
And Indonesian has 5 vowel letters, but with 6 sounds, because E is pronounced 2 ways, either as or as a schwa, In terms of vocabulary, the majority of words are different, but there are also many similar words, including many common basic core words.
I wonder what are the words.
For example, some personal pronouns and family vocabulary are similar. The words for I,
Aku,
Ako.
you, singular.
engkau, kau,
ikaw, ka,
Engkau, ikaw.
We,
kami,
kami,
kita.
kita.
In Indonesian,
Kita.
this is we, including the listener, and in Tagalog, this means me
Yeah.
to you, or we in the dual, you and me together. Child,
Anak,
Anak,
male.
What?
lelaki, laki-laki.
lalaki,
Oh, I
There are
didn't
also
know that.
numerous
Oh,
words
wow, there's
related
a
to
lot.
household and everyday
that I
life.
knew.
Bowl,
Mangkuk,
mangkok,
mosquito net.
Oh,
Kelambu.
wow.
Kulambo.
You'll notice that oftentimes where there's an U sound in one
Oh.
language, there will be an O sound in the other. Door,
pintu,
pinto,
Pinto. Pinto.
Table.
meja,
mesa,
Mesa,
The
mesa.
Tagalog
Mesa,
word
yeah,
is a
the
Spanish
Spanish
loan,
mesa.
and they
La
also
mesa.
say
la mesa,
the Indonesian and Malay word is also a loan from Portuguese,
Portuguese.
mesa. Ladle.
sendok,
sandok,
Sandok.
And in Malay and Indonesian, this also means spoon.
Spoon. Wow.
Nature words. Rock or stone.
Bato.
batu,
Oh, batu.
Bato.
Wind.
angin,
Hangin.
Sky.
langit,
Wow.
Langit.
Langit.
Fire.
Wow.
api,
apoy,
You'll notice that E at the end of a word in Malay and Indonesian sometimes corresponds to Oi in Tagalog.
Oi.
Pig.
babi,
Baboy. Interesting.
buwaya,
Numbers and
I
units
love
of
learning
time.
new languages, you
Moon
guys.
or month.
I'm just like,
Bulan.
whoa.
buwan,
Bulan. Buwan.
minggu,
linggo,
Linggo,
The Tagalog
linggo.
word comes
Oh.
from the Malay word, and the Malay word is from Portuguese domingo,
Wow.
year,
tahun,
taon,
four,
4,
apat,
Apat.
Five.
Lima.
Apat.
lima,
Lima.
six,
6,
anim,
thousand.
1000,
Oh.
libo,
What?
Parts of the body, eye,
There's so
Mata.
many.
mata,
face,
muka,
Mata.
Mukha.
brain.
Whoa.
Utak.
Utak.
Basic states and emotions, hope,
asa,
asa,
Oh.
sick or sickness,
What?
sakit,
How is there
Sakit.
so many? I did not
Delicious.
know this. What?
sarap,
In Tagalog, this is the most
Sarap,
common
sarap,
word you see in
sakit.
advertisements and so on. In Indonesian, enak is more common. To be
enak.
afraid,
takut,
takot,
Takut.
tawa,
Tawa. Oh.
selamat,
Salamat.
safety.
Oh,
Salamat.
I've seen
In
that a lot.
Tagalog, its
Sala-
basic meaning
salamat
is
in
thank you,
Indonesian.
whereas
okay,
in
that's
Malay
what
and
it means,
Indonesian,
conversion.
it's often used in greetings like selamat pagi,
Oh, salamat
meaning
pagi.
good morning.
Okay.
Other basic verbs: to read.
baca,
basa,
Basa.
Enter.
Baga.
masuk,
Basa.
Pasok.
Zero.
It's worth pointing out that m
I'm just
and
like so
p
many information.
are both bilabial sounds.
Masok,
They are both
masok.
articulated with your lips together, so it would be easy for one sound to gradually change into the other. To drink,
minum,
Inom.
to open,
buka,
buka,
to help.
tolong,
Tulong.
Tulong.
Of course, I've been intentionally pointing out words that are similar, but I want to be clear that most words are not the same. So
Yeah,
let's
yeah,
look at
I'm
some
aware.
sentences in either language so that we can compare their sentence structures, but we can also see a more representative sample of their
That's so
vocabulary in
interesting,
general.
man.
These sentences mean, my child likes cats. First in Indonesian,
anakku suka kucing,
word for word
Kucing.
it's, child, my, like cats. And in Tagalog,
mahilig ang anak ko sa mga pusa.
word for word it's, like,
Why
focus
is
marker,
Tagalog
child,
longer?
my, two, plural
Anak
marker,
ko sa
cat.
kuching.
One
It's
part here
easier
seems
to
similar.
like learn.
Anak
Oh, just to let you guys know, I'm not
Anak ko.
fluent Tagalog,
But
but
we
I
could change this
understand
word
Tagalog.
here, pusa,
And the
to
reason why is because
puting,
I was
which
raised
means kitten.
in America.
Then
So
the
my
sentences
first
would be
language,
even
my
more
mother
similar.
tongue is
We
English.
can see that Indonesian is basically SVO at its core. SVO. Tagalog is basically VSO. But another way to
So
think
I
of
don't know
it is as
the structure
predicate subject,
as well
because
for
it's not
both,
always a verb
even
in this
for
position.
Tagalog.
In fact, this word here, mahilig, is not actually a verb. It's an adjective meaning fond of. But a
He
verb
knows
would
more
appear
than
here
me.
in the same position. Basically, these two pieces of the sentence are reversed in Indonesian and Tagalog. That's the more
okay.
common and natural word order in Tagalog. But there's also an inverted word order that's more similar to Indonesian,
Subject.
but is generally considered less natural and is used less often.
Ang anak ko ay mahilig sa mga kuting.
The subject here
Ang anak ko
comes at the beginning, followed by the inversion marker,
Yeah,
"ay,"
sometimes I do
followed
that
by the
too.
predicate. This is less common and more formal, but probably more intuitive for an Indonesian speaker and for English speakers as well. Notice that the Tagalog sentence has this word that the Indonesian sentence doesn't have. Ang, a focus marker. This comes
always get
before the
confused with the
focus of the
ang
sentence,
or nang.
whether it's the subject or the object. Another thing the Indonesian sentence doesn't have is a plural marker, like in Indonesian, the plural can be shown with reduplication, like
Kucing-kucing.
but it's not always used. Of course, Indonesian also lacks an inversion marker, like the word ay in Tagalog.
Yeah.
In general, Tagalog features more little function words and particles than Indonesian does, especially Standard Indonesian. Colloquial Indonesian has some more little words like that. Verbs. One difference between Indonesian and Tagalog verbs is that in Indonesian they have no conjugations for tense or aspect, while Tagalog verbs are conjugated for aspect, though neither language has different conjugations for person and number. Let's look at a quick example with Indonesian masuk and Tagalog pasok, meaning enter. These sentences mean he entered the school. In Indonesian,
Dia masuk ke sekolah.
and in Tagalog.
Pumasok siya sa eskwelahan.
In the Tagalog verb, there's an infix, which is used for completed actions.
Man, my
But
head
there's
is
nothing
starting
that
to
in the
like, well,
Indonesian
there's so
verb.
much
If we want
information
to
right
talk
now.
about an action that's
Because
happening
like also
now,
learning about Tagalog,
he's
but then
entering the
also
school,
like
it's like
Indonesian.
This. In Indonesian,
Dia sedang masuk ke sekolah.
and in Tagalog,
Pumapasok siya sa eskwelahan.
if we want to talk about an action that
Like,
hasn't happened
like
yet,
I want to learn both, and
he
so I'm
will
like,
enter
which
the
one do I
school,
take in
it's like this.
first?
In Indonesian,
Dia akan masuk ke sekolah.
and in Tagalog,
Papasok siya sa eskwelahan.
notice that in Indonesian, the verb itself doesn't change, but rather an aspect
But in
marker comes
Tagalog there is.
before
That's
the
why it
verb,
gets so
and it may
confusing
be
for
left
me,
out.
guys.
Context makes it clear already. In
Pumapasok,
Tagalog, the verb itself is
papapasok.
inflected differently. You may also notice that some of the Tagalog inflections
Indonesian,
are infixes.
Like,
In the first
seems-
case, and in the second case, there's a
it's more
doubling
simple
of
for
the
me
first
to
syllable
learn
followed by
compared
the
to the
infixing
Tagalog.
of
Tataba. I can't even say it.
Indonesian verbs do not have infixes. There are numerous prefixes and suffixes which change the meaning of the verb in different ways, for example, by making it transitive or causative or passive, but there's nothing for tense or aspect. Actor focus and patient focus. In Tagalog, verbs are either actor focus or patient focus. That means they have different conjugations depending on whether the focus of the sentence is on the doer of the action or the receiver of the action. For example, the student read a science book.
Bumasa ang estudyante ng libro sa agham.
This is actor focus, so the focus is on the student, the doer of the action.
Binasa ng estudyante ang libro sa agham.
A student read the science book. This is patient focus, so the focus is on
I remember
libro,
learning
the
Tagalog
receiver
with
of
my
the
mom,
action.
and I got so confused
You
with
can
like
see
the
that
past,
the verb
present,
inflections that are
future
infixed to the
tense.
root are different for actor
Oh my
focus and
God.
patient focus. You can also see that there are two words that are switched in either sentence, ang and nang.
Yeah, I
Ang
get so
is the in-focus
confused on
marker,
that
and
one.
nang is the out-of-focus marker.
Binasa ng
As a quick side note, I should point out that the noun with
Often
the
difference
in-focus
between it.
marker,
Often.
ang, is often interpreted as definite, whereas the noun with the out-of-focus marker is often interpreted as indefinite. But definiteness can be changed by adding additional words, like isang, meaning
Yes.
one. And it can also be understood
I
from
always get
context
confused, you guys.
based
Still
on
to
what
this
has
day,
been
I'm so
previously
confused.
mentioned. Indonesian doesn't exactly have actor focus and patient focus like Tagalog does. It does have something similar but simpler, a distinction between subject
that
focus
better.
and object focus. Subject focus is the basic type of sentence.
But they're both
like this
beautiful
sentence,
languages. They're
meaning
both beautiful
a student
languages in
read
their
a
own way.
science book.
Mahasiswa membaca buku sains.
Technically, Indonesian has no
Student
definite
read.
or indefinite articles, so the nouns here could also be considered definite, but we could more explicitly express definiteness by adding nya, which means it's, to either noun or to both.
Mahasiswanya membaca buku sainsnya.
Or you could use the demonstrative pronoun itu, meaning that. Object focus usually places the object first.
Buku sains dibaca mahasiswanya.
A science book was
That's
read by
easy.
the student. Alternatively, this could be
Buku sains yang dibaca mahasiswanya.
a science book is what the student read. Notice that in Indonesian, there are no markers that show focus or lack of focus like there are in Tagalog. We usually know whether it's subject focus or object focus based on which one comes first. In an object focus sentence in the third person, the prefix di attaches to the verb. But in the first and second person, any prefix is dropped from the verb.
Buku sains yang saya baca.
A science book is what I read. Notice that the verb baca doesn't have its usual prefix mum because the sentence is object focus. And it doesn't have the prefix di because that's only for third person. In Tagalog, all the personal pronouns are different depending on whether they are in focus or out of focus. The out of focus ones are actually genitive pronouns because they're also used as possessives. In Indonesian, most personal pronouns are the same, regardless of whether they are the focus of the sentence or not. As you can probably see, Tagalog on the one hand, and Indonesian and Malay on the other clearly have some similar features that show that they are related, such as their similar pronunciation and similar core basic vocabulary. But it's also obvious that they have diverged so much that they are not mutually intelligible
I can
with
hear
each
the
other,
difference.
partly
It's
because of
very
their different sentence structure and partly because of
They're
their
historic
largely different
sounding for both
vocabulary.
languages.
It's worth remembering that Tagalog is just one language of the Philippines, and that there are many languages
there's so
spoken
many
in
dialects. Oh
Indonesia
my
and
gosh.
Malay-speaking countries like Malaysia and Brunei as well. Tagalog and Malay and Indonesian are not necessarily the two most similar languages from those countries. The question of the day, for speakers of Tagalog and Malay and Indonesian, how well do you understand speakers of the other language? Do you understand anything? Do you recognize some words when you hear the other language? Let us know in the comments down below. If you're interested in learning Indonesian or Filipino, I recommend you click the link in the description to check out Indonesian Pod 101 or Filipino Pod 101. They have hundreds of audio and video lessons with full transcripts for students of all levels. Sign up for a free account and give it a try. And a special thanks goes out to my Patreon supporters, especially these ones right here on the screen. They are my top tier Patreon supporters, and that's why they're in the video, so many special thanks to them.
So the question that he asked towards the end, how well do you understand speakers of the other language? Honestly, I have never encountered the language until I started my YouTube channel. It's because of you guys. A lot of you guys introduced me more to the Indonesian world, more to the language and the culture. I'm still learning. I'm not gonna say like I know everything. Same with my own culture, Philippines. There's a lot of history. Like they both have long, deep history that I have yet to learn. So for this to be a starter, it was really interesting. Also because I love languages, sometimes it could get frustrating when you're learning a new language. And so like my mind was like everywhere. Before I got into my YouTube channel and started to watch more Indonesian artists' videos, content, all I remember I saw was Selamat, right? Selamat. I think it was that. And I was like, what does that mean? Because I knew it wasn't Salamat. Or like a person from Indonesia said Selamat. I think he or she did an accident. But I think that person meant thank you in Tagalog. So it was very interesting. How about you guys? How well do you guys understand Tagalog? Or what do you guys think about the Philippines and all that? Also for the Filipino viewers that are also watching this, what do you guys think of the Indonesian language as well? One day I would love to go to Indonesia. I would love to go and like maybe possibly meet you guys. Whoever's interested in meeting me if I ever choose to go. Thank you so much if you watched this whole thing. I hope this was something informative too. You learned something new, like how I learned something new from this. I really enjoyed learning different languages. Or like learning about different cultures. If there's anything else, just let me know down below and I'll see you next time. Annyeong! Terima kasih. Salamat po.